Baris Bozkurt from Istanbul, Turkey. First of all, I would like to start by thanking the organizers for inviting us here. It's great to be among all these experts from different disciplines. Now, we come from the world of bad rhythms and bad scales. And actually, I wondered yesterday how nasty we are. So I just tried to figure out the distribution of 9/8 and I don't know 7/8. So you see that 9/8 appear almost like 8/8 in that distribution, and also we can dance to it. I can assure you. If you don't believe me, just join a wedding in Turkey. Welcome to a wedding, and you will see how people dance to it crazily. So now we are part of the Comp Music project, and we work with Javier Serra and Preeti Rao and Hema Murthy on this really exciting project. And over there, we are kind of distributed. The main four people involved are me, André, you know André by now, mainly working on rhythm. We have our oldest as PhD candidate now, but he has been spending time a lot on MIDI representation, symbolic representation of Turkish music. And we also have somebody working on, Erdem Ünal, working on MIR. And actually, we try to work very close to musicologists and masters, and me and myself, me and André, we also started learning oud and playing that music because we really want to be inside that, not just be an engineer outside of the music and try to analyze as an alien. But I'm a guitar player, and being in the learning process, one can review the concepts, re-ask and re-ask again, think about the concepts, because in Turkey, well, for traditional Turkish music, we have the problem that there was a strong westernization beginning of the century. So lots of the concepts you face, you have to question if it's westernized or not. Well, we try to be in the heart of the music and try to question every concept. Now, but we are engineers, so our goal is to develop information technologies for music browsing, access, music analysis, music education, but specific to Turkish Makam music. And, well, we hope that our technology will be especially beneficial to a large collection of traditional musics because, well, starting from China, the Uyghurs, Makam tradition, until Balkans, and down to North Africa, including Middle East, and possibly Pakistan. There is a large region where you have all sorts of different traditions which have their own peculiarities, but also they share certain concepts, and there are also similarities. So a technology developed for one is potentially useful to understand the other one. So that is the target. Our research activities until now was in tuning analysis first. Then we did some work on Makam recognition, tonic identification, automatic transcription, rhythm description, and melodic description. Now, in the future, we want to study also structure and form analysis. I don't mean that we have finished the first part, but they are all linked. So when you go into automatic transcription, already you are into everything. And also within the project, we want to do cross-cultural studies. There was one topic I hesitated to add, that was the perception and cognition studies, because we don't have the expertise in the perception and cognition side, but this is something we really want to go into because every problem we study is somehow related to the perception and cognition of music. For example, Makam cognition, how it happens, everything. Well, in every research we do, we arrive to a point that we need information from that domain. And so we really want to collaborate with people from those domains and try to pose the questions together. So if some of you are interested, we really want to collaborate on that and work with you. Now, just from the beginning, when I started working on Turkish music, I wanted to have whatever I collect available to the community, because I want that people start working on that and benefit from that. So first, well, in the Comp Music project, we collect some metadata. That is, we gather many CDs, commercial releases, and just took the information available in the linear notes and put on Music Brains. So over there in Music Brains, now we have put lots of information. Just let me show you a result of one, or let's say Makam. Let's say you can now search in Music Brains in tags. Find me the recordings in commercial releases where you have a recording in Makam Hijaz. So you see you can access to some 300, well, around 400 recordings. And if you would go to one of them, you would be able to see who have composed that, if it's a composition, and it's being played in other recordings or so, and you can see the tags that this was in form şarkı in Makam Hijaz, and you can see the usul, the rhythm of the recording. So out there in Music Brains, you have a large collection of metadata now you can access. So that makes the first part of the data. Second, the symbolic data, we name it as SymTR. So the Turkish music is a microtonal music, so we use more than 17 notes in an octave. And of course, we had to come up with a new representation symbolically. So in text files, you would see that, well, it's like a MIDI matrix. We put all of the information we have about the piece, each event. And now on the comp music side, you can find MIDI, PDF, and those text files. And this is the first machine-readable data available on the internet. And also now we have 550 of these pieces with some interpretation. So you have the symbolic data and also the recordings to start doing some MIR research. Now we are collecting some melodic analysis data. So in this symbolic data, we ask the experts to perform melodic analysis, and that information will be encoded in those text files. So you will also have access to melodic boundaries, the scales, and everything. Now, audio data, we have much more than 4,000, of course, but these are coming from the commercial releases. And again, it will be part of the comp music repository, and it will be hopefully shared. And we have lots of other bootlegs, and we want to be able to share that. We do our best to be able to do that. Now, when I started with André, it was several years ago. We did some beat tracking tests with Turkish data, so that's already available. And now, well, yesterday, also André mentioned that we started collecting some tapping data that will be also available to everyone. And I also try to add as much as possible some basic information or basic recordings that may help someone out of the tradition to understand about this music. So also we try to share that on sites where you can freely access sound. So this is one of that is free sound. In free sound, now you can go and just search for usul. Usul is the word corresponding to rhythm in Turkish music. So there you would see lots of examples put by us. Let's say aksak semai is an usul, and kudum is a percussion instrument. So you can go and see the notation corresponding to that, download the audio. So if you just go on free sound, you will see many examples of basic rhythmic patterns in Turkish music. Yes. And well, we didn't work it so much up to now, but we want to put also information about music, the main concepts on Wiki. That will come within the next year. Now let's switch to talking about rhythm. So I will first talk about what's an usul. So the translation would be something like procedure, method, way, or practice to play rhythm. And we will talk about how an usul is related to a composition. Then we will switch to André, and he will talk about tracking usul in audio recordings and also music without usul. So let's start with a simple example. Aksak Semai, it's in 10/8. So you see, this is the representation musicians use today. So it's a right hand, left hand notation. So right on the top, you see the, let's say, right hand events, and bottom, you see the left hand events. And we use the syllables to mention these, let's say, pulses or events, let's say. And below you see that these, there are some vowels added to indicate the duration. So if I would say duum, that would correspond to longer than dum. So that's a kind of an easy way of talking about the rhythm. Let's listen to that, and maybe you can try to also read. Dum, tek, dum, tek, tek. So this is the way today musicians write and read music. But, well, in the past, they would learn it by slapping with the hands. And you would first need to memorize the usul pattern, then learn the lyrics, then learn the melody. Because or in the old tradition, this is an oral tradition, you have to learn a large repertoire. And that starts with learning the usul, then you build on top. So I guess there is some relation there with the memory and learning, that it's like there is a hierarchy. You first learn the rhythm and everything comes on top. Also, there are some defined variations of this usul. So this is a defined variation named as velvelili, and it would sound like this. These syllables provide you some information about the timbre. So a dum and a tek sound has a different timbre. And it specifies a little bit about duration and strength, but you would see that not always. So a dum doesn't have to be strong all the time. You would see that it may appear as weak also, but well, maybe it's easier to recognize with the syllables, but for sure it gives some information about the timbre. Now, once we learned this rhythm, let's see how it's applied in a recording, and you will immediately spot how difficult it is to do the audio analysis. So this is a saz semaisi, an instrumental form played by two instruments, and you will see that the way they play is somehow it's not too regular. well, you would see the regularity, but let's say not stick to so much of a metronome. The first line would be played with almost constant metronome, but on the third measure, there will be a slowing down, and you would feel that the musicians are listening to each other, and the pulsation comes from their coupling or communication. So I don't know if you could follow also the rhythm, but trying to process that audio and trying to figure out what's the usul there, what's the beat there, well, you can imagine there are lots of difficulties over there. But if you have a percussion within the recording, well, the metronome is more, let's say, well, you would see that you almost have a constant beat. And let's listen to an example. So, well, we didn't have so much sound of the percussion, but music follows a certain beat metronome. Yes, 5 minutes. Oh, I should be fast, sorry. So, when we talk about the metronomes, especially we talk about mainly 3 main tempos. This happens in many traditions I have come upon, actually. So, and to actually, you can generate new usuls by concatenating several usuls. So you see one example over there. You have 2 5/4s, and then a 4/4, and a 2/4, makes up a new pattern. And also there is another interesting example where you have a 9/8. The first, well, you can teach this way. The first part is 3 4s, and the second part is 3 2s. So 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So it's quite generative, I would say. You have several generative methods. Now to go fast, usul and prosodic meter, which is named as wezn, is by some authors considered to be very much related. So it's an open discussion, but some of the authors would claim there is no direct relation, and both would use some statistics about the data. But you see on the right a poem that is being written taking into account the wezn on the left. So that's a prosodic structure, and you can see the related usul on top. Okay, let me just skip that. So recently we have been collecting this melodic analysis information from experts on symbolic data. We were asking them to put melodic boundaries. And, well, we don't have all the data yet, but just looking at some part of the data, what you see here is 12 pieces in aksak 9/8, and the distributions for these 12 pieces where the melody ends within the measure. So there is a strong correlation, a strong link between the melodic pattern and the usul pattern. Maybe you have already had that feeling in the recording that it's very strongly linked. So I want to switch to André now. I consumed all the time, sorry.
Yeah, okay, I think I have something like 2 minutes to explain that, so it's going to be a bit quick. I will only give you the basic facts now, and I would suggest that you can just address me in the break if you're interested in some of those. So one research I did is basically... That was not me. Is the relation between usul and the melodic surface rhythm. Melodic surface rhythm, I will not explain now what I thought in terming that thing. Basically, we had a look how these intonations of the usul, which you were listening to, correlate with the positions of notes in a composition in symbolic form. And basically what we found is that the correlations between the positions of note values and the usul tend to be slightly lower than, for example, what has been reported for Western music with meter. If this difference is something significant, I don't know, but the fact is that there are very strong correlations. Basically, there's a very strong correlation between where note positions or where notes are in the composition and the usul, both in terms of where the notes are and also in terms of their duration. So two aspects which also play a big role in compositions in Western music. So there are two interesting things, two parallels which are very strong. I will not show all these figures now. We can discuss that later, or you can have a look at available papers. Also, I did some measurement of syncopation in Turkish music. What that might mean is also, of course, an issue of discussion, but measuring with some approaches which were more focused on, or basically focused on Western music, I observed the similar phenomenon in these compositions, but I assume that, or I'm sure that to some extent the meaning, the interpretation of that is different. But in other rhythmic structures, also the usage of syncopation is quite uprising again. Also, so it's a bit. There are also some parallels. So there are some aspects of syncopation which might be interpreted differently, but some which appear to be, to me at least, to have a similar interpretation. So this is just a summary of one journal paper with 20 pages. So I think it's a bit difficult now, but anyway, our goal was to have a look at how our audio processing methods can cope with tracking the progression of an usul in an audio signal automatically. What we would need for that is, of course, there's no such method there which is tailored towards something like this. So we ask ourselves, how can we do that with the existing approaches? I write here that, for example, checking all these methods which were made for eurogenetic popular music, for example, and checking these methods on Turkish music, it's necessary an ethnocentric approach because it imposes all these assumptions which were made for Western music on Turkish music. But anyway, we had no other choice here just to try that out. So basically we tried, we had the thought, if we can track the beat, and if we then can recognize the length of a rhythmic cycle in beats, and if we then can recognize where is the downbeat, we are able to follow the rhythmic structure in an audio piece of Turkish music, because we know where starts the cycle, how long is it, where are the beats. So we're basically able to align an usul with the audio. So and the question was, how possible is that? And in a summary, altogether, we have to say it is with taking the current state of the art, which was developed for eurogenetic music, it's not a feasible approach. So we had a lot of problems in beat tracking. For less of a half of the tested only 63 songs, we had to annotate all that stuff. We annotated, or I annotated songs, not stupidly tapping a beat, but annotating the usul with left and right hand in real time to the pieces. And we tried to track the regular, again, the regular beat which is in that files, and we were only able in about half of the songs to do that reliably. The cycle length recognition, so then after having a beat, determining how many instances of that beat might form a rhythmic cycle. Basically, you can say in about half of the pieces we are able to do that. In the rest, we are not able to do that. So you have one processing stage where we fail in half of the cases, then you add another processing stage where you add again in half of the cases, so you can expect not to be too successful if you add that. And if you then want to detect the downbeat, we have a very interesting result. That was interestingly quite well possible, at least in the small data set, with an approach which was tailored towards drum and bass music. That just as an interesting fact that one should not always maybe focus too much or insist too much on tailoring now tools which are specific for one musical culture, but it's also sometimes worth just trying other things, then they might work. Okay, this is a future work. I had a look, or I started having a look at rhythm in Taksim, so in improvisations. And I want to have a look at how rhythm in improvisation is formed regarding to personal style and to recording periods. And just these two final slides and I'm finished. This is something like a rhythmic representation of a metered piece, so of a piece with an usul. So you can sometimes see that these parallel lines form something like the tempo. I will not describe now how this is computed. I can explain it to you later if you want. And you can see there are these strong lines with denoted tempo, and up there these small hills just denote where, for example, here at 0.4 there would be, let's say, the beat, if we want to say it like that. And so we have this peak up there in this representation. So this is a piece with an usul, and this is a taksim. So what is interesting and what I saw in many taksims is that there are clear peaks again in this representation, but there's, of course, there is no continuous pulsation there. But it's a clear prosody which is there, which is rhythmic, and it is interrupted by some let's say by phrase boundaries. And I mean, it has been examined or it has been observed at various points that the playing style of musicians differed in centuries regarding their rhythmic idioms which they use while playing, but it has not been examined somehow how that happens. And I think observing these structures here in the taksim, this is a taksim by Taburi Jamil Bey, which is one of the first master who was recorded actually. And it appears to me that the rhythmic structure he has in his recordings is quite different from other players, but this is the thing I want to have a look at. Now in the next months, basically, that's one research topic. I think that's all.
Okay.